Hello, listeners. Today I have the pleasure of speaking with Thom Singer, who is the CEO of the Austin Technology Council, a keynote speaker who has delivered over 1,000 keynotes and is a certified speaking professional, and the creator of the High Blueprint, a framework for building real human connection in an AI driven world. From busboy to boardroom, Tom's mission has always been the same: remind us that success starts with people. And that's really what we dive in today: how people have been a part of his journey and how he really focuses on helping others create uncommon connections. So I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. What does it truly mean to be a leader? Welcome to The Executive, a podcast that highlights the career journeys, struggles, successes, and day-to-day experiences of leaders. I'm your host, Dr. Benjamin Ritter, bringing over 10 years of experience as a leadership and career coach, L&D consultant, and healthcare executive. My mission is to guide leaders towards creating a career they can love. Thank you for listening. Now let's hear from the executive. Okay, so I have to ask, should I be saying thank you and please to to ChatGPT or my Alexas or Siris to make sure that I build connection and collaboration with them now?
Yeah, I don't think so, because I don't think that computers have a soul, and so I don't think they care if you say thank you and please.
Okay, wasn't sure. You see those memes with like the Terminator and such. Trying to just make sure that I'm safe in the future.
Yeah,
But
well,
in all,
I'm of the age where I grew up watching the original series, Battlestar Galactica, and everything that's happening seems to be exactly what happened to the 12 colonies of Battlestar Galactica. The technology is going to take over, right? I don't know if that's true, but it is a worry that people have.
yeah, and so there are a lot of worries, and I generally work with leaders, and sometimes I talk to early career professionals, and they're just like, "What do I do?" And so I kind of want to focus on that second group, that early career professional. Maybe they have a desire to grow in their career, to be successful, and they're sitting right out of college, or maybe they're about to finish it, and they're just confused because they're like, "What should I even? Where am I going now with my career?" And I don't know if you've had those conversations lately, but let's say we are talking to them. What kind of comes up?
Yeah, I mean, I talk to a lot of people in that, both through my job with the Austin Technology Council, but also a lot of my friends will have their kids call me when they're in that transition, just because they'll be like, "Ah, Tom knows some of this stuff." So I think there's two things that you have to do, and really this is true at any age. But if we're going to talk to these about to be young professionals or early stage young professionals, number one is you have to stay current on what's going on with technology. If you're not playing with ChatGPT, with Claude, with all of these different things and learning the differences and learning how to deep dive research with them, you're going to be left behind. I mean, you have to be able to know how to use all of this AI. And we're just scratching the surface of what's happening with technology, but you've got to put in time. And if your job doesn't require you to use it every day, you better be using it at home, because these technologies are moving faster than anything we've ever seen in technology or in business ever before. So first thing is you got to keep up. The second thing is you've got a network like your whole career is going to depend on it, which means you've got to get yourself out into your industry, out into your community. You've got to network with people, not just people your own age. Sometimes, yeah, mid 20 somethings thinks, oh, I go to the young professionals group, the next gen meetup. Yeah, that's great, because those people, you'll grow up with them in the business community, but you also need to be spending time with, if you're in your 20s, with people who are in their 40s and people who are in their 50s and 60s, because they're not obsolete. And this whole idea of ageism is the stupidest thing in the world, where young people think, the old people don't know what they're talking about. We're starting to lack a knowledge transfer in our society, because we're not seeing people going to the office and working with older people who are mentors. So you need to seek that out. But I think if you build a reputation and a brand and a network, and you're really good at your job and you know all the technologies that are impacting it, you're going to get opportunities. If you don't do those things, you're going to be on the sidelines wondering, why did Becky and Brian get all the opportunities?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you the number one thing that gets people jobs when I'm working with them, especially leaders, even older in their career, is if they're willing to go meet and connect and build relationships. Their
Well,
current relationships. Yeah, sorry, go on.
no, I was going to say absolutely. And when I talk to hiring managers, they say that, especially if they're in their 50s or 60s, early in their career, They would get this stack of resumes and they'd have to look at them and decide. And there was always that gut feeling that said, Mary doesn't have the right degree or the right amount of years of experience, but there's something about her. And they put her in the yes stack and they interview her, they hire her, and she becomes the best employee the company's ever had. Those people are all screened out by the algorithms now that companies are using to scan all the resumes. So that person who doesn't check all the boxes, their resume never gets on the pile. So therefore, the only way you have to get on that pile of resumes is if you have a network of people who will refer you into the company, because just blindly applying just doesn't work that much.
And technology has made it so easy to apply, or have you even heard of VAs applying, or even just AI applying, that companies have a hard time dealing with the amount of resumes they have to go through nowadays too. And so if okay, so going that direction can be really difficult for anyone at any time in their career. Then how can a relationship lead them to a position?
Well, I don't know if I said this before, but I say it all the time. All opportunities in life are going to come from people. So if you look at any opportunity that you have, it has somehow come from a person, directly or indirectly, that's led you to that opportunity. So I think that if we realize that the opportunities are going to come from people, we have to embrace putting ourselves out there where the people are, and realizing that you don't just, if you get laid off, you don't just show up at a networking event with a stack of resumes and think anyone there gives a damn about you. It takes 7 to 10 interactions with people, not before they really care deeply about you and your best friends. It takes 7 to 10 interactions before they notice that you exist, which means if there's some sort of an organization in your community or in your industry, you're going to have to participate for a year or two before you have the right to ask these people to help you. I'm always amazed how many people show up just thinking like, they'll be like, "Hey, David, you have a great network. Can you introduce me to all these people?" Well, they've never even met David. You can't walk up to a stranger and be like, "Hey, can you introduce me to everybody you know?" Because it doesn't work that way. But if you've developed a relationship and now you have a need, those people who know you, like you, and trust you, they're going to help you. But you have to build it before it's a bank account. You've got to make deposits all throughout your life, because there's going to be a time in your career or your personal life where you're going to need to make some withdrawals from people. You're going to need help from others. And if you've been too centered, I watched a video the other day and this guy says, "Yeah, I don't deal with friends or dating. He goes, I'm in a hustle. I'm in a grind. I'm just trying to build my career. I'm not going to worry about people till I'm 30 something." Well, I can promise you that guy's going to become 30 something. He's going to be very lonely. He's not going to have a relationship, and he's going to try and start from there. He may never find friends in a relationship if you put it off for a decade thinking that it's all about the business grind. You got to be building those connections from the beginning. That's why these top colleges, people go, "Oh my God, $70,000 a year." Yeah, but the people who played it right have opportunities constantly, because there's some of the best networks in the world come out of the Ivy League and the Ivy Plus colleges. And not everybody plays it right. Some people go through college and don't walk away with a network. They don't participate in their alumni association. But for the people who do, it opens up all kinds of doors. And I'm not saying if you didn't go to one of those schools, you're screwed. You just have to find another way to build your network. And you do that by showing up.
Repeatedly, over and over and over again.
Yep.
One of the it's funny, I asked you first about the kind of the early career professional, but as I'm asking questions, I realize that it also these same fears, the same issues apply to people of all ages within their career. Like generally the kind of the number one piece of feedback I get when I'm talking with people about networking is that who am I to go ask them? Almost like you need permission to network, to be within these spaces. And I loved what you said about go and don't ask. Go with the desire to connect, to learn, and get curious, to build relationships. And hopefully you do that early enough. But what would you say to someone that says, like, well, who am I to go into this space and like build a relationship with someone that is maybe more senior and has more wisdom and is a higher level position?
So I hear this all the time, especially from attorneys, because I do a lot of work with law firms. I speak at partner retreats, associate retreats, and I do one-on-one coaching with business lawyers on how do they grow a book of business. Essentially, how do they do business development? And when I'm talking to a younger attorney, like a first year or second year attorney, they always are like, "Yeah, but I don't want to go to this technology council thing because everybody there is higher up in their career than me. They're older than I am. I don't bring anything to the table." And I always remind them, "Do you have a law degree? They're like, yeah. I'm like, you realize that to people who don't have a law degree, that's pretty impressive. So you walk in the room and you work for a brand name law firm, you automatically get respect from the fact that, wow, you're a pretty smart young man or young woman, right there. So you're more of an equal than you think you are. And the people who are CEOs or CFOs or CTOs, they don't look around the room. Well, that's not true. Some of them do this, but the good ones don't look around the room and go, I don't associate with people who are less than me. No, people want to meet people. And I get opportunities all the time from people who would be 20 years younger than I am because they see me give a speech and they're like, wow, that would be great. And they go tell their boss, hey, I saw this person. We should bring him in for our meeting. So, yeah, the person's 38 years old or 28 years old. Maybe they're 30 years younger than I am. But if they make the recommendation and I get hired to speak for their company, they've just had a material impact on me. So you bring something to the table. You have your own network, you have knowledge, or the skills you have might be able to help the organization, right? It's like volunteer, get on the committee. If you're an accountant, all nonprofit organizations need somebody to help them with their books because, the person who's running the thing might not be a CPA. So you show up and say, hey, I want to get on the committee. I'm really good with numbers. Can I help? Well, you are bringing something to the table. So no matter where you are, if you're saying, well, I'm not as good as the people in that room, you're hurting only yourself because you go and show up. Now, does it mean everyone's going to be welcoming and treat you well? No. Are there going to be some asshats who look at you like you're less than them? Sure. But think about your own life. Do you ever walk into a room and think, my pedigree is better than everybody else? I don't want to talk to these people. You don't do that. Neither do they.
It's so true. We just kind of live in our own fears and kind of become our worst enemies when it comes to networking and building connections. No, it's like also if you want to be interesting, but you don't know why you're interesting, then maybe there's something to do there. Like maybe you need to go become interesting, but you probably are missing out on how valuable you are, but also putting a lot of pressure on yourself. Why don't you just help other people feel that they're interesting? Kind of lean into that
Well, that's
curiosity, yeah, skill.
that's the truth of this is, one of the things that people are taught is, oh, memorize an elevator pitch about yourself. So they show up thinking they meet, oh, I meet Benjamin. I better flick the switch in my back and recite my elevator pitch. And for those listening who aren't sure what an elevator pitch is, it's something that's been around for 40 or 50 years. And they teach people when you're going to go networking, memorize 2 or 3 sentences that are maybe quippy or funny about yourself. So when you meet them, you can come in and say who you are, what you do clearly and concisely really fast. The problem with this is it's teaching people to lead with themselves. The first time you meet somebody, nobody really cares about you. They care about themselves. So instead of memorizing something about yourself that's going to make them be like, yeah, whatever, dude. Like if I met you, Benjamin, and let's say that you hired speakers for conferences, we got on an elevator on the 30th floor, and I was like, oh my God, Benjamin could hire me to come in and speak at that conference. If I just looked at you and went, hi, my name's Thom Singer. I've written 12 books. I speak all over the country. I run the Austin Technology Council, blah, blah, blah. If I just have verbal vomit all over you, what are you going to do when we get to the lobby and the doors open?
Walk out.
Run.
Say
Yeah. I
nice to
mean,
meet you. Yeah.
yeah, I've never had anybody say, take you to Starbucks to learn more. No, they're like, if I meet somebody and they start talking about themselves, I kind of get the ick. I get repelled. So when you meet somebody, don't talk about yourself. Memorize 3 or 4 questions that gets the other person to talk about themselves. Ask them how they got into the industry. If you're in a room with people who are more successful than you are, and you go up and say, wow, I read about you in the Austin Business Journal. Your career's been phenomenal. Can you tell me how you got started? Nobody's going to look at you and be like, how dare you admire me? I'm not speaking to you. Just the opposite. They may talk to you for an hour about their whole career. And if you can get the other person talking, studies have shown they actually like you more. They've done these studies where they like introduce 2 people. You've probably seen this on like reality TV. They send people on a blind date. And they record everything. They put cameras in the flowers and they put microphones in the beers. And then they take them in separate rooms and they say, what'd you think? The person who talks the most says, I love them. I hope we get married and have 3 kids. The person who talks the least says, I don't know if I want to go out with them again. And so what they found is when people meet, the one who talks the most tends to like the other person more. So you're better off asking a lot of questions. If you're curious, you're going to find opportunity because here's the thing, success leaves clues. So ask questions of people who are more successful and they're going to like you. Maybe they're going to give you a nugget or an idea, or maybe they'll take you on as a mentee. So if you're in that position we were talking about where you think, oh, what do I have to bring? Realize you bring yourself and be curious. And then if you can find a way to help those people, you're golden.
Yeah, that like low hanging fruit in terms of, oh, they said something that I know someone that I want to put them in touch with, or they said something that I can help them with, or maybe it is being the accountant for the local chapter of the event that you like going to. Mm. So you kind of mentioned having to go somewhere maybe like 7 or 8 times before, or even for a year before people really want to, before maybe they think of you as being like a strong relationship. What are some of the things that people can do when they go to events, or maybe even virtually, that can help them kind of form solid relationships?
Well, number one, I already talked about, and that is ask questions of people, right? Learn. The second thing is if you're a little bit more shy, go to the event with somebody else, one of your friends, somebody you work with, so that you kind of have a networking buddy, so that you're never alone. If there's no one to talk to, you always have that other person. You can go join their conversation because you're already their peer. So that's a great way to do it because you can help each other. Like you can go off and meet different people, and then you can say, "Hey, you should meet, Diane. She's fantastic." So have sort of that, and then again, here's a problem is if you're not in the room, you're not part of the crowd. And so whether you're in a leadership role in the community or you're in a rank and file role in the community, you have to remember that real leaders show up. And I've seen it time and time again. People who don't have the CEO title or, the a lot of money or a lot of success, they become leaders in the community over time because they show up, they volunteer, they give back, they help promote the organization. I mean, I run this group called the Austin Technology Council, and there are a handful of people who on social media promote all my events. Do you think I notice them when they come to my events? Yeah. I mean, I don't ask them to help me. They're not on my board. Some of them aren't even members, but they think my organization's good. They think I'm doing a good job. So when I post something, they forward it and say, like, wow, you should really go check out what they're doing. You should check out this event. Well, when they show up, I have a kinship for them because they've been sort of helping me. So, even before you get to the event, help promote the event. If you think it looks interesting, put it on your social media, tag the event planner. And all of a sudden, the event planner is going to be like, who's this person? They're awesome. And then they'll
Do you
introduce you
think
to
this is,
people.
yeah, you think this is like common knowledge? Because let's say you want to get in touch with an author. Like I have a podcast to interview a bunch of people. If I buy their book and take a picture with it, or if I share it and then send them a message, like night and day in terms of response. Like same thing
And
with, yeah.
And you've got to be sincere, right? I have a
Hmm.
podcast and I run the Austin Technology Council podcast every week. So I haven't been doing my podcast very much. It's been real sporadic for the last 2 years, but it's 10 years old. I mean, I have almost 1,000 episodes of it. So it's out there. In the early days, it was a top ranked podcast before all the celebrities got into the game. And so I'm on these mailing lists of people, and you probably have this same thing where they pitch themselves and it starts off, I never miss an episode of cool things entrepreneurs do. Well, there's two problems with that. I changed the name 4 years ago of the podcast to Making Waves at Sea Level, and I haven't done an episode in several months. So if you say, I never miss an episode of a podcast you changed the name from 4 years ago, and they're lying. They're saying, oh, I listened to everyone. Or, oh, I listened to this last episode you did. You just looked at who the guest was. There's nothing you said in that email that sincerely says what I talked about. So you can't try to build kinship by being a bullshitter. You build kinship
Hmm.
by doing it for real. So if you buy their book and you have a picture of you with the book, at least they know you at least have it in your hand. I mean, you may or may not have read it, but it's different than just sending them an email saying, "Oh, I love your book." Well, how do I know you love my book? I don't know that you have it.
Now we're gonna go to AI and just say, put a picture of me holding Tom Singer's book.
Well, AI brings up a whole other thing, and that is the foundation of everything in business. Everything we're talking about now, but really everything we do comes down to building trust. Because, as I said before, people are going to do business with people they know, they like, and they trust. Well, trust is getting harder to get to because getting to know people is harder. Secondly, there's so many fakes that are coming out, and people are starting to realize that every time they see a video, if it's at all controversial with a celebrity, they'd better question it, right? There was a video that came out the other day about one of the members of the royal family, and it was her talking, putting down another member of the royal family. It was a total deep fake, and anyone smart would know that. But if you weren't smart, you'd be like, see what that person said about this other member. Well, that's going to start happening with regular people because Benjamin, your picture is out there, your voice is out there. Somebody could grab it and create a set of videos of Benjamin saying really crappy stuff. Well, we're all going to have to question everything we see from now on. There was a TikTok the other day, or a Instagram, that came by, and it was of all these deep fakes, and they were talking to the camera, and it was people saying all this stuff, and it was one of them was, "Hi, Grandma, I haven't really been kidnapped." Blah blah blah, and the idea was it was educating of the fake things that are happening out there to real people. And I thought, wow, that is something that everybody should make their grandparents watch. And my wife and I, this has never happened to us, but my wife and I have a key word, right? It's like, if anything's ever questionable, let me give you a great story. On Instagram the other day, 6 months ago, I got a message from one of my college fraternity brothers. Well, I'm 58 years old. This was 40 years ago almost. And this is somebody I have not kept in touch with. And I get a message that's really kind of just says, "Hey, how have you been?" Well, that is a red flag for social media. If you get a generic message from someone you haven't talked to in a long time and it's non-specific. So I wrote back, "I'm doing really well. I thought of you the other day when I was in Las Vegas, dot, dot, dot. Why would I think of you in Vegas? Question mark." To which he immediately replied, "My green card wedding." Ding, 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 ding. When we were in college, he got married, and they're still married. They have a real marriage, but they got married. They don't have been dating 6 months, but they got married because he was going to be deported. They were really in love. It wasn't a fake marriage, but we all went to Vegas for the wedding. And his comment was, why would I think of you in Vegas? Well, my wedding. Well, that pretty much proved it was the right person, because a faker wouldn't know that. So, but we're gonna have to be paying attention to that, which means all trust is going to be more and more undermined.
Mm-hmm. Ooh. I recently actually had a story too of someone's very senior leader in an organization sending voice recordings through WhatsApp to their employees and it not being them, but it being their voice. So, how does someone, and maybe kind of taking it away from AI, but I love that you brought up this topic, maybe even AI will be in this. How does someone build trust then? Uh, and how quickly can you be? Can you build it?
Well, I mean, you build it at different levels based on the type of interaction you have with people. But trust isn't just a single thing, right? Trust is made up of a lot of different pieces of trust. So it's the way you communicate, it's the way you show up, it's, are you getting results? It's all these different things. And what happens is that in this world where we're going to start doubting everything, you have to have a physical relationship with people, right? You have to show up more, because I say it all the time. Real leaders show up. You can't be a leader in a community if you've made a bunch of money and you sit by your pool and drink beer with your friends and talk about what a great leader you are. You don't get to self appoint yourself as a community leader. Your people follow people they choose to follow. So I think we're going to have to show up in person more often, because the only way you're going to have trust. I know if I'm face to face with you, or we're on Zoom right now, I am 99.9% sure you're a real person as we're recording this, because I can see you. You smiled when I said that. Your head moves around when you're listening. So, if we're there, yeah, you have 5 fingers, not 9. So all of this stuff, if we're on Zoom, that's why the video stuff, it's there. I can pretty much tell. Although if you were a celebrity, people could fake it. There's ways to do it. So showing up in the room, if you and I are having a beer, we're sitting across from each other, then you know it. And so I used to only connect with people on LinkedIn if I'd had a cup of coffee, a meal, or a beer with them, because then I knew them, or a digital equivalent if we had a Zoom call. Now, in my role with the Austin Technology Council, if somebody in Austin in tech sends me a LinkedIn request, I kind of feel I have to accept it because of the job that I have. But if somebody from Topeka sends me a LinkedIn request, I don't accept it, because I don't need to be connected to a ton of strangers. You know, First of all, the way the algorithm works for LinkedIn, they're not showing your posts to anybody anyway. But second of all, strangers don't go, "Oh, wow, I wonder what Tom's up to. How can I help him today?" So having that at least occasional face to face is going to become, I think, more important than ever.
Yeah, very much so. I still think though that the majority of people don't know what not to trust. Like, I think there maybe has to be an education campaign because they see the thousand of bot comments on someone's post and think that person's a subject matter expert. And And so this is great information for people that like for myself, like, okay, so go to an in-person event. But also I think if you zoom in and say, okay, let's talk about just the leader in an organization or the new employee in an organization that maybe starts it and it's all remote. It might benefit them to go to the conference that maybe 5 of their team members are going to, and even if they have to self-pay some things, or maybe go drive 3 hours to go have coffee with your coworker that you haven't met in 3 years. I think the little things. So what recommendations might you give to someone that is maybe in a remote job or that has been living kind of that remote first culture?
Sure. Well, and I will tell you, so the big argument the last couple of years has been remote, back to office, or hybrid. The answer is whatever works for your company, right? There are people who tell me they have the most amazing culture and they're 100% remote from the beginning of the company, and it works. There are other people I know who have companies like that and they have no culture and people leave and, don't mail their computer back. There's a lot of problems. So, you know, anecdotally, we can say remote is great or remote is horrible. I think it's great if it works for your company. However, I know a young guy, well, young guy, he's probably about 40, younger than me, who recently, a couple years ago, was passed over. He works for a medium sized tech company, not one of the giants, but a decent sized tech company in the Silicon Valley. And during the pandemic, they went fully remote and they told everybody, if you go remote, you can stay remote. You don't have to come back to the office. And so he moved his family up to Tahoe from Silicon Valley because he had a house in Tahoe, thought a better place to raise the kids. So they moved from San Jose up to Tahoe. And what is it? 4 years later, 3 years later, he has a promotion that he kind of was given an advance warning that it was going to be his, like wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And 4 or 5 months later, the promotion comes out and it goes to somebody else. And he goes to his boss and says, I don't understand. And they said, well, she's in the office every day. And, we see blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, wait a minute. You told me I wouldn't be penalized if I worked remotely. And so I get on the phone with him because he's a friend of a friend. And I'm like, you were not penalized. You just weren't rewarded. She was rewarded because she shows up every day. She probably brought donuts on Friday. These little things matter. And so, in a remote world, you have to work twice as hard if you're not there to be in front of people. Now, I used to have a job many years ago before remote was a thing, but it was a San Francisco based company. I was in the Austin office, and literally one of my best friends in the world was the marketing director for the San Francisco office. I was the marketing director for the Austin office. And I mean, many, many years later, I don't talk to him anymore, but during that like 5-year period, I talked to him like every day. And I knew, about his kids and I knew everything that was going on because we interacted every day and we would talk about the good, the bad, the ugly of what was going on. So you can do it remotely. You can build relationships. You can have people you trust through the remote, but you would better take ownership of it. So if you're in a remote environment, what are you doing to make sure you stand out? And that might be pinging people and saying, hey, let's have, a remote lunch together. You get your lunch, I get my lunch. We log on to Teams and we'll just chat like we had gone to the local taqueria together. Well, awesome. That is a proactive thing. And for the most part, it helps. I know a young man who transferred offices within his company and he's a programmer. He is an introvert. When he moved, my advice to him and his wife's advice was you should set up an in-person coffee with all 13 people in this new office that you've moved to in a different city. And he's like, why would I do that? Half of them are in the office every day. So I'll see them. The other half have jobs that can be hybrid. He has to be there every day. And he's like, so I'll see him once a week or whatever. And we were like, no, you really have to go do this in person with everybody. And he begrudgingly set up coffee before work, like 7 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, over the period of like a month with all the people in the office. And afterwards, he was like, yeah, that was a really good thing because he was proactive. Now everybody knows who he is. They know about his family. They know what he's doing. Where otherwise he was just the new guy and, in the corner office and they don't talk to him.
As you were talking, I started thinking about, oh, I could have little slots in my calendar that are like the organic slots I get if I was in office, like 15 minutes in the morning to say hi, 15 minutes, 20 minutes during the midday during lunch, 15 minutes when I'm leaving the office to go say bye to everyone, how their day was. Yeah, because you miss that organic relationship building opportunity when you are remote.
And it can be done digitally and remotely. It's not as good as being face to face. There's nothing better than saying to the guy in the next office, let's go, grab a burger for lunch, because then you're sitting there and you're talking and all this. But it's true in a relationship too, right? As a professional speaker before the pandemic, I was traveling 100 nights a year and I had 2 children and a wife. And so I got really good when I was on the road. Every single day, I would text everybody and I would try to have a phone call with the kids and my wife before everybody went to bed every single day. And it took effort to make sure I was doing that. But now I work from home most of the time. We have an office for the Austin Technology Council, but I'm the only one, so I'm hybrid. I can do what I need to. So I work out of this office where I'm sitting right now. My wife's office is on the other side of the wall. And sometimes if we're both busy, we don't see each other from 9 in the morning until 6 at night. I mean, if our bathroom and lunch schedules don't line up, we can go the whole day, because if the other person's on the phone call, we don't want to bother them. So I will text my wife 2 or 3 times during the day and, ask if I can help. Can I make, if I'm going to make lunch? Even in a marriage where we live in the same house, you've got to do that. So if you're not that connected to somebody and you're working for a company across the country, if you do nothing, you'll have no relationship. And if you have no relationship, you're leaving opportunity on the table, because we all know people who leave a company, go to a bigger company or a better company, and then take 3 or 4 people with them. And those 3 or 4 people are like, yeah, I just doubled my salary or whatever. And the people they didn't take are like, well, why not me? Well, there are lots of possible reasons, but one is they didn't know you as well.
Very true. So how do you integrate the real leaders show up, or how has it impacted your career up to today?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of examples, right? I mean, I'm very fortunate. I've had a lot of opportunities fall in my lap, and it's because I've been really well connected in the community. People know who I am. They know I'm consistent. If you show up for 25 years in a greater community, people pretty much know you're not just there, to get the next deal. They know that you're showing up because you're supporting it. So it's a long game, right? This is not a sprint, it's a marathon. So for myself, by just showing up, being nice, trying to help people, there are people out there who don't like me, and that's fine. But I usually think if you put it on a scale, there's less of them than there are the people who like me. So I just go about my day and be the best me I can be. And I don't worry about the people who are like, oh, maybe he's this or maybe he's that. I had someone who was talking bad about me, and everyone who knew me came to my defense because they're like, that is not at all who you are. Well, that's because they know me pretty well. So, I've realized that showing up matters. We just had, for the Austin Technology Council, we just had the second annual Austin Tech Hall of Fame. And we should have started this 20 years ago. We're a little behind. So we put 8 foundational people every year in, because there's like 60 or 70 people who helped make Austin a tech hub. You can't drop 70 names into a Hall of Fame at once, or it'd be the dumbest night ever. And you can't drop 1 or 2 or you'll never catch up. So I came up with, it's an 8-year launch. Plus we do a current person and a first-time founder. So there's a future to this Hall of Fame that goes beyond the 8 years, but it's an 8-year launch. And every year we put 8 people in. This year, of the 8 people, 3 of them, over a course of 40 years, 3 of the people inducted had at one time been the chairperson of the Greater Austin Chamber of Commerce. And I will tell you that to be the chair of the Greater Austin Chamber of Commerce, you have to do a lot of lifetime volunteer work for the right reasons for many years before you're ever selected to be chair. And that year you're chair, it's a full-time job in addition to whatever your career is. 3 of the people who were put into the Tech Hall of Fame were people who had shown up a lot in the business community, not just the tech community, by doing that. So, but part of being part of the business community in Austin is you're part of the tech community. And they showed up. I mean, if you're going to volunteer at that level, you have to be in the room a lot for many years before you get there, and then for many years afterwards. So I just think that's a great example of 8 people who were put in this year. 3 had chaired the chamber. I just think that says a lot, that if you want to be seen as a leader who's Hall of Fame worthy, you have to show up and do more than make money. You have to give back, and you have to give back by showing up with your time.
Very true. Well, so how, if people want to show up or follow how you're showing up, could they follow your journey or maybe even get in touch or support?
Sure. Well, I have 2 careers, right? I have the Austin Technology Council. And if you work in tech in Austin, be a leader, show up. And we have monthly networking breakfasts, and then we have 3 or 4 signature events a year. We're looking to expand, we're looking to grow. So we're looking for people who care about the future of our tech community and not just leaving it up to chance. We always say, oh, we don't want to be like the Silicon Valley. Well, if we don't pay attention then we're going to lose our golden goose. And the golden goose for our tech community is how connected we are. And as we get bigger, it's harder to keep alive. So one of ATC's charges is to build that community and keep that community. So there's that side of my life. And there's a side of my life where, I'm a professional speaker. I do a little bit of coaching, mainly for lawyers on biz dev, but some other stuff. They can find out about me at thomsinger.com. And it's THOMSINGER, but a little secret. If you go to Thom Singer, TOMSINGER.com, it'll redirect, because I was smart enough to buy both of them. Even though I spell it THOM, most people wouldn't know that. So they can find all the information about me there. And I'm pretty active on LinkedIn.
Wonderful. Put all those links in the notes. And how smart. I love that you bought both Tom and Tom, just like the different spellings.
So I
It's
have
been
a
a
friend
pleasure.
I have a friend who's a speaker. Her name is Jessica Pettit, and last name is Pettitt. Nobody would spell Jessica Pettit that way. And they call her Jennifer because they can't remember Jessica. She literally bought 9 different ways that you could come up with Jessica Pettit, and they all redirect to the right one, because people will leave out a T, or they'll put a K in Jessica, or, whatever. So every mistake she'd ever seen, she bought that URL and redirected it. So it's a little more ambitious than me.
But really smart. So thanks again. I really appreciate your time.
Thank
Wonderful
you.
stories. And I hope to show up somewhere that you're showing up
Well,
in the
you live
future
in
too.
Austin. You live in
Yep.
Austin. We should go have coffee in person.
I'm in. Let's make it happen. Thank you for listening to the Executive Podcast, where we explore what it truly means to be a leader. If you've taken one thing away, make sure to subscribe, share, and most importantly, leave a review. Thanks again, everyone, and see you next time.